Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Wednesday. Today what we're going to be doing is making Hojicha ice cream. If this is your first time here, my name is Patrick and I teach Japanese cooking once a week on Wednesday at 6 o'clock with a new video, one recipe. And today is the season finale of my live series for summer 2018. What we're going to be doing today is making Hojicha ice cream. I have my ingredients scattered about. The recipe is on my Facebook page or on my blog, alldayeat.com, if you want to check that out. And let's see, so if you've never made Hojicha ice cream or if you've never heard of it before, one of the things that you should know is that it is a tea, so it's similar to Earl Grey, green tea, black tea. It's got its own unique flavor. I think it's pretty aromatic and nutty. We're going to be using about 4 tablespoons worth. And let me just get it out of my tea cabinet. So here's a brand new bag. We can go ahead and get started by creating a custard base. Looks like, yeah. So you should be able to see my picture-in-picture, hopefully. Let me know where you guys are viewing from. If this is your first time here, let me know with a comment below. Other than that, let's go ahead and get started. So this recipe is pretty straightforward. We're going to be using 3 egg yolks to thicken it up, about 100 grams of sugar, and half whole cream and half whole milk. So I have 1.5 cups of whole milk right here, and we'll measure out 1.5 cups of whipped cream when we're ready. But with that, let's go ahead and get started with the base. So I'm going to heat up the milk. And while we do that, we can go ahead and prepare our sugar and egg yolks. I'm going to go ahead and separate out these egg yolks from the egg whites. Actually, I just need one. So this is my ice cream machine. I'm going to turn it on in a little bit so that it has a pre-cool function, so it cools the ice cream much quicker than without it. So I always use it. It's a time saver. And let's see, so it's separating the egg yolks. I use the shell to separate them out. So I just play catch, basically, with the egg yolk, and it separates out nice and evenly. Gotta be careful because the shell can be sharp sometimes, and it'll poke the egg yolk and make a hole, or rip it, which you don't want. Interesting thing, I read Ben & Jerry's ice cream book. Uh-oh, this one broke. Ben & Jerry's ice cream book where they actually use the entire egg. So that's pretty different from most of the recipes that I use where we separate out the egg yolks. Have you made ice cream with the entire egg before? Let me know, because I have not. I always use the egg yolks. All right. So that last one tore a little bit, but it's all good. So there's my egg whites and egg yolks. I'm going to use my Immersion blender to whisk them into a nice creamy texture. And today I wanted to make a little bit of an adjustment to my go-to Hojicha recipe. I wanted to use turbinado sugar. So I usually use turbinado for like baked goods like muffins, or if I want to put cookies or some sugar on cookies and stuff like that because they're thick granules. Let me show you on the close-up there. But today I thought I would add a little bit of a different spin or flavor on my Hojicha ice cream and use that instead of regular white sugar. So that's what that's about. If you've never had turbinado sugar, it does have a slightly different taste than white sugar. I actually like it. It's not as dark as brown sugar, but it's got a unique flavor. So what I'm going to do is whisk the eggs so that they're nice and creamy. And usually I would add the white sugar with the eggs and cream them together. But because these granules are so thick, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to add it into the milk. Actually, I should just go ahead and do that right now. And let that cool. So I'm going to go ahead and whisk these eggs so that they get nice and creamy. So that's good enough for me. They have turned a pale yellow, kind of like my shirt. So here's a close-up of how it looks. And actually I'm going to go ahead and whisk the sugar and milk a little bit to make sure all of the sugar has dissolved. Oops, too fast. Okay, so let that sit there for a little bit and we can go ahead and get our tea ready. So in the past I have tried using tea powder as well as whole leaf. I actually left, the last time I did it with tea powder, I made it at home and I left it in the final products. So it adds a different texture. If you want to have little pieces of tea in your ice cream for additional flavor, that might be worth exploring. Otherwise, you might want to stream it out or strain it out like I'm going to do today. So 4 tablespoons worth is going to be relatively strong. It'll give you plenty of Hojicha flavor, and it doesn't have caffeine, or if it does have caffeine, I believe it's very, very low. So you can eat this ice cream at night, which Emmy, my girlfriend, always complains about when I make green tea ice cream or coffee ice cream. So she will be eating this right up. So this is a half cup. Let's give it a quarter cup. Nope. I'm just going to put this in here. This is a half cup measuring cup. And do this about halfway. So there's about a half cup or a quarter cup of Hojicha tea. And let's see. I think most of the sugar has dissolved. So I'm going to go ahead and whisk in the hot milk into the egg yolks. And then we'll add it back to the pot, and then we'll let it simmer as a milk tea for about 30 minutes. So it takes some time. Okay. So where should I do this? My milk was about to boil over. I'm going to show you right here. Just put in a little bit while I whisk. Okay, so that's that. Go ahead and add this all back in. And then we'll add in the tea leaves. And our ice cream will be just about done. Okay. So we'll throw in the tea leaves. And this is basically a milk tea at this point with egg yolks. Doesn't sound appetizing, but once we cool it, it'll be really good, really delicious. I'm just making sure all of that is evenly dispersed. Go ahead and cover this and let it sit for about half an hour with the heat off. And then in order to strain the leaves out, because we're using whole leaves today, we don't want to leave them in our final ice cream. We'll just use a fine mesh strainer. If you're using powder, you could strain them out you can strain the powder out with a nut milk bag. So that's that. We'll let that sit there for a bit. Make sure everything's going all right here. Okay, so I have my ice cream container here ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the pre-cool function for my ice cream machine. And if you're interested, I did publish a matcha green tea ice cream recipe, or video, not a recipe. I did a video earlier, I think it was Monday, so if you want to check that out, that's how I make matcha ice cream at home. I also did a review of this ice cream machine. If you are in need or looking for a new ice cream machine, this is the Breville Smart Scoop. I've had this for a few years now and I've been pretty happy with it. I make quite a lot of ice cream, and the best thing about it is that you don't have to pre-cool any giant container in your freezer and take up your valuable freezer space. So that's why I recommend it. And let's go ahead and put this pre-cool function on. Actually, before we do that, I should mention I did put a big saucepan on my stove. This has cold water in it. I'm actually going to put in an ice pack. Here's my ice. So I usually put in an ice pack in here to cool it even further. And once we're done, after we strain out the mixture, or the tea from the mixture, we'll go ahead and put it into a temperature safe bowl, which is this metal stainless bowl that I always use. And we'll set it in here to cool. So if you don't use a bowl, it's going to take at least 20 to 30 minutes longer for your custard to cool. And we all like saving time, so this is my little tip for you to save time. And yeah, I guess, Vicky, you could say that my ice cream maker is deluxe. I don't know if there is a fancier one than this one. I don't think it's too fancy, but I'm pretty happy with it. So highly recommended. So I'm going to go ahead and start this pre-cool function. So right now it's at 82 degrees. It's going to cool down to I think about 0 degrees, and by that point it'll be ready for churning. So usually it takes about 20 minutes roughly, and while we're waiting, I'm going to go ahead and make my dinner. This ice cream is not my dinner. I was going to make Hojicha, which is a cold ramen noodle, Chinese style. It has a sesame, usually it's made with sesame and sesame oil and soy sauce, or ponzu. I have some that I bought when I was in Japan the other month. So I'm on my last bag, so sadly. I guess we can go ahead and measure out the what do you call it? The cream. So we're going to use 1.5 cups of cream before I make my Hojicha. So let's go ahead and put that in here. So I'll measure out 1.5 cups. It's like this solidified. Okay, so there's 1.5 cups. I'm going to go ahead and set it in this bowl. And meanwhile, I'm going to give my Hojicha mixture a little bit of a stir. So you can see that the color of the milk, or the custard base, is starting to turn a little bit brown, which is what you want. You can actually smell it. At this point, it smells just like Hojicha tea. Really good. And I don't like my ice cream very sweet, so I don't use too much sugar. Whenever I make American style ice cream, I always cut it in half at least. Japanese style ice cream is usually not too sweet, so I don't cut it back too much, but I always cut it back a little bit. So usually my ratio for 3 cups of liquid, so that means cream and milk, is 1/2 cup of sugar. So I think this is about 1/2 cup's worth of turbinado sugar. So yeah, you want to see the ice cream machine close up. I'll show you how it looks. So this is how the panel looks, you can see that it has the pre-cool function, which is where it's at right now. Sorbet, frozen yogurt, gelato, and ice cream. So you can adjust the hardness depending on what you're making, as you can see. And then we're on the pre-cool function. There's a timer function. I don't really time making my ice cream. I always just make it on demand. And yeah, so that's that. This is a little container for the ice cream. You seal that shut, and that's a little, I guess, explanation. Okay, so what I was going to do was make my hiyashi-chuka. I actually need to use a different pot. Okay, I'll use my little Dutch oven. Put this over here. Don't want the hot flame to warm up my ice water bath. So I'll just put that on high heat. Just going to boil 4 cups of water. And I have a cucumber, which is usually what I eat my hiyashi-chuka with. This is the sauce. And then this is the pack of noodles. So I forgot where this is from. Where is this from? Oh, this is from Fukushima-ken. So I went to, on the last few days of my trip to Japan, I went to these regional specialty shops. They're called antenna shops in Tokyo. There's like, I don't know, 20 or 30 of them, specializing in different food items and souvenirs from all throughout Japan. So it's kind of like traveling Japan, the entire country from north to south without really having to go anywhere. So they have all of these regional goods, including food, which obviously is what I care about most. And so I stocked up on a bunch of them, as much as I could, and this was one of the things that I found. So this is the soup, hiyashi-chuka soup. This one actually has lemon juice in it. It says lemon iri. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bowl. And then we'll put the soup in here. I'm going to throw it in the freezer so it's extra cold. It's supposed to be cold noodle soup. I don't know where you guys are at, but it's relatively hot where I am. It's been in the upper 80s this week, Los Angeles. I always have trouble with these. There's a little slip right there. So that's our sauce. If you've never made hiyashi-chuka before, right now is a good time to try it because it's summer and it's hot and it's good food for hot weather. Have you guys had hiyashi-chuka before? Let me know. Go ahead and close that. All right. So what I usually do is serve with some cucumber, sliced cucumber, and tomatoes, and clear some of this area. So my hiyashi-chuka sauce is chillin' in the freezer. Go ahead and put that away. Don't need this anymore. What we're going to need is a strainer. Where did my strainer go? Strainer. So here's this. We'll use that to strain this custard when it's ready. And I wanted to use a tomato. So I guess your go-to toppings for hiyashi-chuka, since you want to always top it with something, are going to be cucumber, ham, and tomato. At least that's what I like. No, I wasn't going to use my teeth, but I guess if I didn't have my scissors right here, I would have used my teeth, just like a shark would. So I'm going to go ahead and slice the tomatoes, or tomato, and then we'll slice up the cucumber. So I like to put it into little sections, just like this. I think I'll have about 3 of them today. And I think my hot water was ready, just about. Go ahead and throw this in here. You could, if you haven't, if you don't want to buy the packaged, pre-packaged Hojicha, you could probably just use plain ramen noodles and make the sauce from scratch. It's pretty easy to do. Usually it's just soy sauce or mensu with lemon and sesame oil. Obviously, if you're using fresh citrus, it would taste much fresher, much more potent. Okay, so we'll let that cook for a few minutes and then we'll strain it out. Let's see. So whoever it is that just joined, welcome. Let me see, what else are we gonna do? So, cucumber. I don't know why my cucumbers are hollow sometimes. Do you ever have that problem? It's not really a problem, but they just turn out to be hollow. So just slice this into big strips. Doesn't need to be perfect. We'll just put that there. And let's see, so actually, so it goes beyond 0 degrees. It's at minus 22 degrees right now. Hey, Vicky, have you ever, oh, there it goes. So it's done, it's pre-cooled. It automatically starts churning when it's done. So I'm just gonna turn it off since it's chilled already, which is just fine. I think we need about 15 minutes roughly for the milk base to keep what do you call it, brewing. Set this aside. It smells so good. So you can see it's really thick, and the color has turned a nice light tan. I have tried to recycle the tea leaves after making ice cream, but most of the flavor is gone, which makes sense, and that's what you want, obviously, when you're making ice cream. You want all that flavor to get put into the ice cream base. Okay, so I'm going to test these noodles. Okay, I think those are done too. So I'm going to strain these in using a different strainer. And we're going to go ahead and, because this is supposed to be a cold noodle dish, we're going to put it in ice, put it under some cold water and ice, and that'll chill it really quickly and stop it from cooking. Okay, so there's that. Okay, so it's cool now. I'm going to grab some ice and put it over the noodles so that they get chilled. Need too much, just a little bit. Okay, so there's our noodles. They're done. We have our sauce that's ready in the freezer. Bowl got nice and cold. Go ahead and put this in there. Actually going to squeeze out the excess water. There's usually a little bit. Don't want your sauce to get diluted, so always squeeze it out. Kind of like when we made our salmon noodles several weeks ago. Okay, so I think that was most of it. All right. So noodles are done. All we have to do is mix in the sauce. So like I'm doing right here. Just tossing it. It's a very light sauce, as you can see. Probably only has like a teaspoon of sesame oil in it. And I always like to add a little bit of white pepper, just to give it a little bit of spice. So need to move that. Oops. Just a little bit. And then we'll top it with these tomatoes and cucumber. So I'm not really trying to do a presentation right now, since the main focus of today's episode was ice cream, but this is how it looks. I would probably put some ham on there if I had it, but I don't. Let's go ahead and taste this. Does it make you hungry? If it's not making you hungry, maybe I didn't do my job right. All right, guys, so let's see, what time is it? 32. So I'll give this another 5 minutes or so. I'm going to take off the lid so that it starts to cool. Give this another little mix. Hojicha's smell is much richer than it was previously. You can see that the milk mixture has darkened. It's probably about twice as dark as it was initially, which is what we want. Okay. So in 5 minutes, I'm going to strain it and then we'll put it into this ice bath with the cream. And then we will be on our way to churning. And I'll have ice cream by roughly 7:50, 8 o'clock-ish Pacific time. Not too bad. It is good. Delicious. Vicky, you ever made ice cream at home? Or hiyashi? Have you had these kind of noodles? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and strain out the tea at this point. I'm going to put most of it directly into the pot. I'm going to show you. I'm going to squeeze out as much of the milk, egg yolk, custard base as I can using a spatula. Make sure you guys can see. All right, so you can see if you don't squeeze it, you're going to be losing a lot of that milk, so squeeze it out until you don't see any more showing up like that. You can see that the dark milk tea base contrasts with the white cream, or the off-white cream at least. So if you see that color difference, that means your extraction was successful. So good job. Okay, usually I just press it against a container like this, the Pyrex that I have here, and get off some of this excess cream that's stuck to the inside of the pot. And if I didn't mention it before, the good thing about making Hojicha ice cream is that it doesn't have caffeine. Or if it has low enough caffeine that you can eat it at night, you'll still be able to sleep. Okay. This is one of those things that they always serve at the end of the meal if you are eating in Japan, especially at nighttime, or if you go to a dessert shop and you have like shaved ice, kakigori, or some sort of ice cream shop, and it's like a sit-down dessert place. They'll usually serve you some Hojicha tea. Helps to balance all that sweetness out. It's definitely got an adult flavor. It's very refined. And the good stuff, if you have good quality tea, it won't taste bitter. Okay, so I think I got most of it. It's probably about a couple tablespoons worth, but better than nothing. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and whisk this occasionally while it chills in the ice bath. Oh yeah, so I forgot to mention, I don't know what I was doing earlier, but once you add in the egg yolks, you want to do the back of the spatula trick to make sure that the custard is done. So this mixture will stick to the back of a spatula. This one's kind of little, but you can see how it doesn't drip right off. That means that the eggs should be more or less cooked. The alternative, which I usually do, is testing it with a thermometer. It should be at least 165 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's just so you don't get sick from the eggs. Obviously, if you're not using eggs, you don't need to do that. Okay, so I'm going to check the temperature. It's pretty cool. It's not hot. You can also check for sweetness at this point. Might be a little bit late unless you're using something like honey or syrup. So let that cool in there for a little bit, and then we'll turn on my ice cream machine and finish the churn. All right. So not too bad, right guys? Once you've made one ice cream, you can make any ice cream. Process is pretty much the same, aside from the ingredients, or if you're adding something at the end. So where should I put this? I'm going to put this, I guess, right here. Turn this precool back on. And we should be able to add in the ice cream base in just a little bit. So I used to always cook my cream with the milk mixture. Totally unnecessary. I haven't really found any flavor difference or texture difference in keeping it separate and not cooking the cream. And it definitely helps to cool everything down much quicker so you can get your ice cream faster. So highly recommend that you do that. I love Hojicha. So much lighter than regular ramen or udon. And these are some really delicious noodles. Okay. All right. So I think my my base is cooled just enough so that when this starts churning, we're going to go ahead and add in the base and get that going. And we'll cut off the video for a little bit, and then I will come back to show you what it looks like as we are finishing things up. So let's give this another, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. Go ahead and drop it in. Take a little break, and I'll come back in a bit to show you how the final product looks and do a little bit of a taste test with you. So what should I do with my egg whites? Since I make ice cream all the time, I always have a problem. What to do with my egg whites? Usually I end up just cooking them or throwing them in pancake or waffle batter. Any suggestions? Let me know. Okay. I think that looks cool enough for me. It's at minus 18 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to go ahead and pour it all in there and get this thing going. All right. I'm going to go ahead and hit start. It's like a few pieces of tea leaf got in. It's all good though. So one interesting thing that I didn't know until I started making ice cream is that in general, when you make ice cream and you're churning it, it incorporates air and it increases the volume, so roughly I think 20%, 15 to 20 to 30%, depending on how often, how fast you're churning it. And that's why, even though we're using 3 cups of liquid, we're going to get 1 quart, so 4 cups of ice cream. So interesting fact, if you never thought about that. So now that we have our ice cream, let me show you, our ice cream is churning. Let me show you a close-up. I'm going to turn the hardness back up to ice cream, and then that's how the base looks as we are churning. So this will start to increase in volume, so it's about halfway full right now. By the time it's done, it'll be all the way up at the top. Yeah, that's how I make my Hojicha ice cream. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. And we'll take a little break. I'll be back in about 50 minutes, roughly, is usually how much time it takes to churn. So if you want to see that next step, I'll see you in a bit. Alright, so 50 minutes is going to be about 7:30-ish, 7:45-ish Pacific time, so see you in a bit.